Story number 1. A sinister night. I still wonder about that night, still that recognition converts my face pale, still that clogs my further thinking. One night that completely changed me actuality. I remember the date well. It was March 17, 2018. It will be no wrong to mention it as the calamitous day in my life's calendar. I had no idea that a dream can be true ever. We finished our respective dinners. Saurav, go to your bed, my mom ordered me. My mom was a superstitious lady, so she wanted me to sleep early that night as it was a full moon, and according to my mom's superstition, it's a night that attracts spirits. I will go after few minutes, Mom, I exhorted her. But a superstitious person has no eardrums. She didn't listen to me and strictly ordered me to go to sleep. My mom was a grump too, so I got onto my bed as I didn't want her to be lambasted. I picked up my cell phone and started to scroll down to proceed further with the time. Gradually, I started to travel in the world which comes after my eyes being closed. Everything was dark there, but what was that? Something yellowish was attracting me towards itself. I didn't have any idea what it was. I just started moving towards that strange radiation. Believe me, it was as if something was calling me to pay some contribution of mine. I went on. I noticed a board informing me the location, and its translucent visibility took my great attention. OMG. It was a crematorium. What the hell I was there for? I heard people moaning in the pain of separation. There was a plethora of individuals crying as loud as they could. I thought as if someone was assassinated. They all gathered there for his condolence. Yes, it was him. Till then I was aware that there was a male burning on the pyre. Someone coming out from the cremation ceremony informed me that a dead man was in the fatal fire. I found myself with 0% interest, so I simply went aside to piss off. But still that fire was enthralling me. It was calling me as if to collaborate in the ceremony. I went on until then I was a part of the moaning crowd. I inquired about the dead man. Oh. I was completely shocked. The night became darker. That news left me completely unconscious. Heart started thumping as it would break all my rib cages. It was my own maternal uncle. How could it be possible? He met me 4 days ago. He was absolutely fine, then what happened to him suddenly? I inquired and came to know that he had a cardiac arrest and brain hemorrhage simultaneously. His blood pressure had fallen suddenly. His eyes burst off. What a situation it was. A moment ago I was pissing with a relaxation. One news completely disturbed my mind. The man who had a name few days back was heralded a body now. Still I controlled myself. I thwart my emotions to be expressed. I don't know why I controlled it, but I think it was my male egoism which didn't let me cry like a child. The cremation was done after about an hour. Everyone was departing towards their respective homes, disturbing the silence of nature with their buzzing. I was still there at the crematorium. Everyone went out. I was all alone. I was baffled then. Jackal howling increased my fear. I was scrabbling. I started to run faster than I ran earlier when a street dog was showing his love in a bizarre manner. After running about 100 meters, something adhered me. Oh shit, I was sloshed. I somehow managed myself. I started to walk when suddenly a screech struck my ears. My face turned pale. Someone was calling me. I looked around, but no one was visible there. From a far distance, a shivering light emitted behind the trees. I was eager to know about it. I followed the path of emission. I shrugged off the leaves and started to travel among the deadly combination of darkness and the silence. With a bereavement in the first chamber of my heart and a deadly fear in the second, I was initiating to get to the goal I was pacing for. Instantly a howling made me to adhere to a tree which was almost exhausted. The only tree which had no leaves on it. I noticed this when I looked around. And what was that? On the tree? OMG. That was an owl. I saw it for the first time ever in my life. I am thankful to my nightmare for only a reason, that it made me possible to feel the appearance of an owl. But I was shivering with fear. My heart was thumping. I wanted to run out of all this shit, but something defied my legs to proceed backward. I had no idea what was going to happen later. That was my indelible moment when I was doing something without any motive or without any of my profits. Somehow I reached my destination. Ultimately, that source from where the light was emitting was apparent. I accelerated myself. As close I was going to the destination, as aggrandized it was appearing to me. Until then it was completely in front of me. It was a ruined palace, with spider nets over everywhere. I was proceeding inside the palace, but suddenly I stopped. I listened to something. I stood there for a while and was trying to understand what that sound was. I listened to it for many times, till I could understand. It was a lullaby. But listening to it in a male's cacophonous sound was something strange to me, that I have never ever seen a father singing it to make his child fall asleep. All this thinking stopped instantly when I opened the gate and saw the emitter of that cacophonous. He was not less than any nightmare. His complexion was extremely white. White that was on its verge. His gray hair was showing his experience of age. His eyes were a reddish like he has just finished a smoking session of marijuana. He was in black clothes with a white sash on one of his shoulders. He indicated me to get inside the palace. I entered without any second thought. I don't know what was there in the old fellow which led me to do as he said. He subjugated me, I think. Get inside, no need to worry, he told me. I was in a subconscious phase of mind. I thought twice for the first time. I was thinking till then. I wanted to tell the whole nightmare to my mom. I was going through my room and suddenly my phone rang. I picked up the call, and I was numb. I didn't ever expect that call. That was the day when I felt back-to-back shocks, back-to-back sorrows. How could it be possible? How a nightmare can be true so quickly. From the other side, someone informed me that my maternal uncle had left us few minutes ago. I was agonizing if my uncle enrolled himself into my nightmare. I ran as quick as I could to inform the news to my parents. I was outside the room and heard some cackling. I partially opened the door and got stuck at what I saw. An old man was there in front of my father. The same complexion, with same gray hair. I gathered all my courage and entered into the room. I informed them about the news I heard. The same crackling broke into moaning. Both my parents were in sorrow and they never noticed the old fellow. But that man was looking at me with a baleful smile. He came and embraced me, and then something happened in which every sorrow was swept away. Lo aa jaya purani haveli ka Buddha admit, he murmured into my ears. He left my house. He left a fear inside me. He left me with a sorrow. He left me with few sleepless nights. Story number 2. Am I her? The door opened and she was ushered in with a broad smile. There was a party going on in full swing, and as she walked in, men and women turned towards her with broad welcoming smiles. Welcome home, Cheryl, some said as they lifted their glass to her in salute. She felt good, she felt beautiful, and little Robbie was laughing as he held her hand. The grand staircase was decorated with green vines and blooms of flowers cascaded down the railings and from beautiful vases placed all over the room. Suddenly Robbie left go of her hand and darted into the crowd. Robbie darling, please come back, she said as she followed him through the crowd. She saw Robbie run up the grand staircase and she followed him. Suddenly, the bright sunny day started turning gloomy and the wind howled through the windows. She could hear the thunder rumbling in the distance. All the flowers on the staircase had faded away and the wood looked old and weathered. She was breathless as she searched for Robbie along the dark corridor. Her blood ran cold as she heard a woman scream. Clutching her diary to her chest, she frantically opened door after door, and when she came upon the last door she saw the woman lying on the floor, blood pooling around her, and her assailant holding up a bloody sword, standing over her. The number MV02KF09 glinted off its sharp blade. She staggered out of the room and the assailant followed her. She ran along the dark corridor till the edge of the carpet caught her foot and she went sprawling down. She looked back over her shoulder only to see the bloody sword rise up in an arc and come crashing down. Charu sat up on the bed, a scream trapped in her throat. Sweat pooled off her forehead and her limbs were trapped in the sheets on which she had been writhing. Her breath came in gasps and she tried to calm her thundering heart. Not able to overcome the adrenaline that still pumped through her, she switched on the bedside lamp and walked over to her desk. She took a pen and the writing pad and tried to write down what she had dreamed about. Party welcoming Cheryl Verghese home. Small boy Robbie with Cheryl. Grand staircase. Dead woman, hair covering her face. Bloody sword with the number MV02KF09 on it. Unseen assailant. There was one other thing Charu felt was important, but she could not remember the detail. She thought for a while and then gave up. She recognized the grand staircase. It was the central staircase of the Kochi Museum, which made sense as it had been converted from Cheryl's home. But what made no sense to her was this feeling of déjà vu. Was she to go against her scientific beliefs and believe that she was a reincarnated version of Cheryl Verghese? If yes, why now? Cheryl lived a long time back, and if she had been murdered, as her dream suggested, then her assailant would be long dead too. So the revenge plot was out. Charu leaned back on her chair and decided to take one thing at a time. First thing tomorrow she would talk to Martha and then she would head to the museum again. Maybe being at home would provide a clue to the crazy scenario she now found herself in. The next day, before Martha could swoon again, she quickly explained that she was not Sherry, but she was Charu, and showed Martha her childhood photos. She then went on to ask why Martha had reacted the way she had. Martha shuddered and said, "You have haunted my dreams for the past 50 years. I thought you had come to haunt me in person." "What?" exclaimed Charu. "I have never set eyes on you before. How could I have possibly haunted you? I don't know if it is you or it is Sherry, but you feature in my nightmares. You beg and plead and say, 'Chechi, where is he? Where is my Robbie? Please find him, please help me, find him.' I can't bear her pleading voice and I cannot help her as I don't know who she is or who Robbie is. Waking up from the dream always sends me into depression." A chill ran down Charu's spine. So there was indeed a boy called Robbie who was missing. But what was their connection to Martha? She tried to question Martha again, but Martha had stood up. "Please, my child, leave me alone for some time. I cannot bear to relive that dream," said Martha as she walked back inside the house. Charu sighed and got up too. She made her way to the Kochi Museum. All that she wanted was one clue. Just one proper clue which would tie up things together. For now, all the clues lead down different paths and she had no idea which path to take. As she neared the museum, she decided to observe it carefully. If it indeed was Cheryl's house, then there would be a favorite room, a favorite nook, or something which Cheryl liked. Charu hoped that it would provide the required clue. Charu decided to follow the path which she had taken in her dream. She walked into the hall and eerily the past began to mingle with the present. She could hear laughter bounding through the walls and sometimes heart-rending tears. As she walked up the staircase she felt buoyant and happy and after a while deflated and sad. She had to accept that Cheryl had gone through a lot of upheavals in her life. She finally reached the end of the corridor. Each of the rooms she had passed had been converted into rooms of the museum, but her steps had led her to the one at the very end. The door was closed and the handle was dusty as if the housekeeping people never bothered with it. Looking around furtively, she slowly turned the handle and finding it surprisingly unlocked, slipped in and closed the door behind her. Two things hit her at once. One, a deep sense of foreboding, and the second, the huge painting on the opposite wall which had goosebumps blooming on her skin. It was the same abstract painting of the lady that was on the cover of the book she had picked. Her mind conjured up images of the dead woman on the floor and the murderer, but it was not clear. She could see a dark stain on the faded carpet and she assumed it had been the blood that had not been cleaned. Charu rubbed the chill off her arms as her steps unconsciously took her towards an old writing desk that was sitting under the portrait. It was covered with dust, but it was as familiar to Charu as her own desk at home. She put her hand under the desk and pulled a hidden lever that made a secret drawer suddenly pop out. She gasped as she saw the diary and the old set of fountain pens lying inside. She picked up the diary and stood next to the weak light filtering in from the grimy windows. With trembling fingers, she carefully opened the weathered pages. She could hear muted sounds from outside the room as visitors walked around the museum. Her first instinct was to take the diary home with her, but once she opened the book, she could not stop reading. January 1st, 1940. A new year, a new diary, and a new beginning in so many ways. There is an air of change as we hear the slogans of the revolutionaries everywhere and the British soldiers look jittery as they patrol the town. Anthony has been so wonderful last year and the hotel, oh my gorgeous mountain Mount Verghese is being built. I will never be able to repay him for his goodness, but today I have very special news to share with him. I have his heir growing in my womb. Oh, he will be so very delighted. And dear Derry, yes, you are new, but can you feel the pen flowing across your pages and not the scratching of the quill? Yes, that's because Papa gifted me a set of fountain pens. What a wonderful invention. He hopes that I can now stop scrubbing the ink off my fingers. Papa is so thoughtful and kind and generous. I am glad that Anthony is just like him. Anthony loves the sword that Papa gifted him for our wedding. It hangs above the fireplace in the living room. The next few pages chronicled her journey through her pregnancy and her overseeing the building of Mount Verghese. She wrote sporadically and apologized to the diary that she was too sick during her pregnancy to write. There was one jubilant entry as she wrote about the birth of Robbie and then again just a few entries as she grappled with motherhood. She mentioned that though she had a procession of nannies, she preferred to be a hands-on mother. And then an entry caught Charu's eye. The handwriting was not as confident as before and it looked a bit shaky. March 8, 1943. Dear Diary, whom can I lament to but you? Papa and Mama are so far away and I don't want to trouble them. Anthony says that motherhood has stressed me out, but then Robbie is the sweetest boy ever. It is Anthony who is the cause of my distress. I have reason to believe that he is involved in some nefarious activity, but I do not have proof yet. He spends all the time at the hotel and rebuffs me when I gently question him. Oh, what might he be up to? Is he with the revolutionaries or on the side of the British Empire? Or is he involved with something completely different? Or someone? Oh, I wish my mind would stop playing tricks with me. He is my husband and I love him. Yes, I do. March 31st, 1943. A new event has now occurred. Anthony has a code engraved on the sword and he refuses to divulge its meaning. Why would he hide it from his wife? Is it a code for the illegal activities he seems to be conducting? The code is MV02FK09. After many sleepless nights, I have come to the conclusion that MV stands for Mount Verghese and FK for Fort Kochi. But what do the numbers signify? I'm going quite mad. April 5, 1943. That man has damaged my prized possession. He has written the dreaded code on the photograph of my villa. I was searching for it only to find it tucked away in the study of his drawer. The handwriting in the next entry was unclear, as if it had been written under great duress. The ink was spread out in places as if water had spilled on it, or maybe tears. Charu strained her eyes in the growing darkness to see. March 15, 1943. I can't believe what I just saw. Oh, why is it so difficult to write? Why can't I stop my hand from shivering? Why, what prompted him to do this? I deduced that May 9th be a room at Fort Kochi, and I went there today. I knocked on the door, and when it opened, Anthony. Charu gasped and turned around as she heard a sound right behind her. Story number 3. Vigilante. August 1990. Some scary story always happens a stormy night accompanied by lightning, thunder, and some rain. I was tossing up this and that way on a sleepless night, with thoughts of my grandfather, whom I had never met. My dad had told me that he had served as a priest in a temple but had died early in his late 20s. All of a sudden, I had got up and felt the ghost of his presence. I switched on the light and drank some water, and realizing that no one was there, went back to sleep. The morning I got up, I felt something had changed somehow. I was leading a normal life as a bachelor working in a bank as an accountant. Since that night my sleep got disturbed, I became prone to spooky dreams of visuals from Hindu mythology. I wasn't what you call religious or God-fearing. My work suffered as a result and was pulled up for shabby work by my manager a few times. It was then I decided to see a doctor at CMC Vellore. Initial treatment did not help, and soon I was asked to see a psychiatrist. After a series of tests and diagnosis, he declared my condition to be one of schizophrenia and prescribed some drugs. The drug treatment did not help me either, and the nightmares continued and I felt haunted. October 1990. On a cloudy Sunday morning, I went on a random trip on a motorbike. I reached the foothill of a small hillock and decided to climb till the top. I could see some signs of a dilapidated temple that was small. I decided to rest in the shade offered by a small tree and soon dozed off. I got up feeling very relaxed, like never before since the eventful night. For the next few days I kept coming up to this spot and felt the same kind of relaxation. My mind was made up by then, and this would become my new home. I quit the bank and encashed my accumulated leave and was relieved by the end of the month, by which time I had completed formalities to withdraw my provident fund and gratuity, and together with my savings I had enough to lead a simple life. Soon a makeshift home was ready by a cave with a source of spring water hole. I may sound a bit paranormal to tell you that my grandfather started living his life through my body. Soon I had read books on religion, learned a mouthful of slokas which I could grasp very easily. I cleared the temple premises and gave it an antique but presentable look. There was an occasional visitor or two at the beginning. Soon a trickle had started. There were offerings, cash, cooked food and fruits from the devotees. Word was spreading around about the temple, and the Baba and myths and miracles were added from one person to another. I was also joined by a deaf and dumb destitute man at the hilltop and started living at the temple premises and worked like my valet. October 1991. A year later my nightmares returned and started feeling my grandfather's ghost. This time the visuals contained horror scene related to retribution, vendetta and death, good overcoming evil, that sort of thing. I saw oriful men and women, abusive men and women. I was left to wonder what my grandfather had to do with all these nightmares. The answer came soon enough. One bleak day at the twilight hour a man had climbed up and came up to meet me. He had the look of evil personified, and a rage had built up in me by the looks of him for reasons unknown to me. As he narrated his abusive story of murder and rape, I recalled one of the nightmares I had seen in the recent past. The victim was a teenage girl. He had sought me out for atonement as he was in a position of power, did not want to go to police and confess his crime. I felt like slashing his throat right away, but an idea formed instantly. I asked him to wait as I said I wanted to consult a holy book. I told him what could be done, and an evening was set for the following Friday for his atonement. I had asked him to hand over some cash for the preparation. The next few nights until the Friday were sleepless for me. I repeatedly saw the man raping and murdering the girl as if I was there as a witness. I was beginning to get an inkling of an answer to these nightmares. Friday the 13th, October, 1991. At the appointed hour the man walked up the hill. as he was told he had shaved his head, wearing only a dhoti with a cloth to cover his chest. He had walked from the town. He had told no one about this appointment and ensured he had covered his track well. He wore no jewelry nor carried his mobile but some cash tucked in his dhoti to meet his expenses. I signaled to my valet who started the fire in a makeshift pit surrounded by all